How's it going, everybody? This is Top Driver. Hope you're having a great day, and welcome back to another video. Alright folks, it is time for the unofficial return of a video game series that I have not done in over a year and a half. It is called Haulin Games. In this series, I talk about all the pickups that I get for my PlayStations 1, 2, 3, and 4 collections, and this is the first one that I've done since June of 2023, and I felt like this month will be a good time to bring it back. For this one, I'm going to be showing you my gaming haul for the holidays of 2024. Now, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I have been long considering getting back into video game collecting. However, it was going to be real difficult because, number one, most of the games that I've wanted for the PlayStations 1, 2, 3, and 4, I've already gotten. And also, I still don't have that much space here in my room, especially since I'm still trying to find my own apartment or home to live in. So ultimately, though, if I am going to get back into this, I'm not going to be doing this like every single month. I'm going to do at least like, once like every other month, and I'm going to try to keep it to at least a minimum. And since this is the holiday season, and I really felt like that I really hadn't gotten any real hardcore gaming in such a long time, I felt like that this would be a good time to go ahead and really add some games into my collection again. So it's only small, but hey, maybe as soon as I get my own home, maybe hopefully next year, I can finally start getting back into the swing of getting this series back into full focus. But for now, this is the holiday edition for 2024. Anyways, these are all the pickups that I got for the holidays of 2024. They're only for the PlayStations 2, 3, and 4. I did not get any for the PlayStation 1 because, let's face it, I didn't find anything real interesting for the PlayStation 1. But either way, this is my first haul in quite a while because most of the games I've gotten ever since June 2023 are largely all the Call of Duty games, especially the more recent ones that I've gotten. But either way though, I'm really excited to present you this lineup, so let's go ahead and get right into it. And we are going to start out with our PlayStation 2 games. I'm just going to go through each one of these games one by one, and the very first one that I got here is called Monster Jam Urban Assault. This is basically the sequel to Monster Jam, which I believe was released a year prior, and I did get that during one of my video game hauls back in 2022. So ultimately, this is the sequel that was released by Activision in regards to Monster Jam. It's basically the same exact thing, however, it ultimately is now taking place in a more urban assault-like atmosphere. You still get your races, you still get your freestyles, and of course, you still get a whole bunch of carnage to go along with it. Obviously, I was a huge fan of Monster Jam growing up. Obviously, when I was a kid, one of the very few things that I really enjoyed looking forward to during the afternoons was getting to watch Monster Jam on a Speed channel and really just enjoy watching all the action here. I mean, obviously, I really wish that the Speed channel was still around because obviously I have not seen that much Monster Jam recently, and it's pretty much disappeared from my TV screens as of late, and I'm real disappointed at that. But either way though, it does feel good, just to go back and relive the memories of being a Monster Jam fan by playing a little Monster Jam on the PlayStation. So yeah, obviously the sequel to the original Monster Jam that Activision released, I'm happy that I have this one, and I'm really looking forward to playing this one in the near future. Next game that I got here is called Conflict Vietnam. This is another one of those oddities in regards to the Vietnam War. There are not many Vietnam War games released for the PlayStation, unlike World War II games, but it does at least feel good to know that whenever there is at least a good Vietnam War game around in the video game industry, you really have to go get it. And this was one released by Conflict, and ultimately this was the third game released in the Conflict franchise. And again, just like the first two, this is a tactical third-person shooter, which I'm extremely not good at. I mean, I'm still having a hard time trying to get past the first two Conflict games because, man, the tactical shooters in which you have to control multiple soldiers instead of just one soldier is extremely difficult to do. But like I said before, Vietnam, this was basically a trip out of what we saw from the first two Conflict games and into the controversial war that really set America into a blaze, as well as the country of Vietnam. And obviously, like I said before, Vietnam War games, they're very hard to come by nowadays, but hey, whenever there is one, you have to be bound to pick one up. And this was another one of them right here, so obviously I'm very happy to have another game from the Vietnam War era into my collection, this time from Conflict. I'm looking forward to playing this one when I get a chance to do so, and hopefully if there is still any more Vietnam War games, I'll get them at some point. I do have Viet Cong, which I still haven't played yet, but hopefully I will at some point. Next one I got is Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories. Now, I know what you're thinking, wait a minute, don't you have all the regular Grand Theft Auto games already? Well, those were the main installments of the franchise. There were some side stories that were released for the PlayStation 2, and this was the very last one right here, released back in 2006. I don't really know much about this game, but I do know a little bit about what it says on the back of the case here. It's basically, just about a guy named Tony Cipriani, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and basically went to hiding because he killed an actual made man, and now he's basically getting back to Liberty City because he just really wants to make things right and really, just bring the city under control and really just, like clear his name and all that stuff. So basically, it's just a guy that was in a war of crime, ultimately got into trouble, went away for a bit, and is now trying to get back into good spirits. Yeah, there were a few other side stories in regards to Grand Theft Auto that were released during the PlayStation 2 era. I don't exactly remember the names of the other two, but ultimately, this was one of them right here. So, if those other side story games were around, hopefully I'll pick those up at some point, because even though you do enjoy the main installments, and again, the main installments of Grand Theft Auto is what made GTA so famous, the side stories though, they also play a huge part in the popularity of the franchise. And of course, we're all still waiting to see when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. I mean, obviously, many rumors saying it could be next year, could be 2026, I don't know, but everybody is still on their toes waiting to see when that game finally comes out. It's probably going to be the most highly anticipated video game release of the decade, and so we'll just have to see when that happens. But either way, Grand Theft Auto, Liberty City Stories, glad to have this one. Hopefully I'll play this game in the future. Then we have a couple of cartoon-based games. The first one from Nickelodeon, it is SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. Now, this game was released, I believe, the year before the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game came out. This was released in 2003, and yeah, you're basically just playing as SpongeBob or any of your fellow characters, and basically, Bikini Bottom is under attack by Mr. Krabs' main nemesis, Plankton, and ultimately, you're basically just defending Bikini Bottom by, teaming up with your allies and ultimately fighting him to the ultimate death. As I've said many times before, SpongeBob SquarePants, it is my favorite cartoon show of all time. I still watch it to this day, and yes, it is a guilty pleasure that I still watch it, but either way though, SpongeBob SquarePants games, they are still extremely hard to come by in today's world, but there were a ton of them during the early to mid 2000s, and this was one of them right here. And ultimately, I have seen this game get passed around on eBay and Amazon and a whole bunch of other game stores for quite a while, but I never really had any real interest in picking this one up until now. But yeah, obviously my fandom for SpongeBob continues, and I just felt like that the only way to continue it was to get this one. So happy to have this one and looking forward to playing this one. And finally, the last one for the PlayStation 2 is called Ed, Edd and Eddy, The Misadventures. Now, this was a game that was released all the way back in 2005, and remember Ed, Edd and Eddy, this was the popular cartoon show from Cartoon Network, and of course, it was during the glory days of that network that this game came out, and really, it's basically the same concept as the actual show. You're basically just scamming people. That's right, literally you're playing around as the three Eds, and you're just going around making these crazy diabolical things, and ultimately, you're just scamming people all the way to the very end, and ultimately, that's what this trio of bros do best. Now, believe it or not, this was the one and only game from the Ed, Edd and Eddy franchise that was released for the PlayStation family of consoles, which ultimately does surprise me, but really it didn't matter because ultimately this was a very weird game for its time. I mean, there's a lot of crazy things for its time. Plus, I'm gonna be honest with you, up until seeing this game, I've had very little recollection of Ed, Edd and Eddy over the last few years ultimately. So this does bring back memories a little bit for me, and so ultimately, I can probably understand why Cartoon Network is not as popular now as it was before then, because let's face it, that network, it literally has collapsed in recent years, and literally you look at all the shows that are airing on it now, it shows. But yeah, Ed, Edd and Eddy, this was a part of the glory days for that network when it was really good. It was probably one of the best shows there was on Cartoon Network, and ultimately it is disappointing that this was the only game released for the PlayStation, but either way, I do have it. I'm very happy to have it, and I'm really looking forward to playing it. And that'll do it for all the games that I got for the PlayStation 2. We'll move over to our PlayStation 3 games, and there's only 3 that I got, and ultimately 2 of them were actually from the same movie franchise. So one of them is basically a spin-off. The The first one of which is called Cars Racerama. Now, this was actually the sequel to the Cars Major Nationals game, which was released on the PlayStation 2, I believe in 2007, I think the year was. But either way, this game was released in 2009, and basically it's the same concept as the previous game. You're playing as Lightning McQueen or Chick Hicks or any of your favorite racers from the Cars movie franchise, and you're basically competing against your rivals in a series of races to become the best driver in your league. Again, this, along with Major Nationals, they were not made installments for the actual Cars movie franchise or video games franchise. This was basically just part of a spin-off for it, and of course, Major Nationals, that was really weird, but also a lot of fun to play as well. So I'm really interested in seeing how well this game plays as well. I mean, obviously, you know, we will have to get into Cars 2 and then Cars 3 once I try to find those games later on to see how they play as well. But I really loved the first Cars game, and I really only played a little bit of Major National, so hopefully I'll get through the rest of it there. But ultimately, once I get into this game, hopefully it is pretty good. And speaking of Cars 2, that's exactly what I have for my next game right here. This was based off of the 2011 film Cars 2, and really the last Cars film that I've actually seen in theaters back in 2011. I really enjoyed that film. I felt like that was a good sequel for the original Cars film, though it basically steered away from your stock car racing and all that stuff, and it basically is a mixture of racing and also a bunch of spy missions as well that you're playing in. So basically this is a little bit more of the high-tech version of Cars compared to the original one. And yeah, basically this was just based off of the entirety of the Cars 2 film. So basically just from the beginning all the way to the very end, just like the original Cars game back in 2006. But I will admit, I didn't enjoy the actual game as much as the Cars 2 movie, unfortunately. I felt like that it was a little bit harder than it was to actually play than, you know, the original Cars game. But either way though, you know, this is the second game of the Cars franchise officially, at least in the main installments of it. And so hopefully I'll get a chance to play more of it and finish this game, and hopefully the rest of it plays pretty well. Now, I do not remember if Cars 3 is out as a video game, but if it is true, hopefully I'll try to find it for the PlayStation 4, because ultimately I do want to play that game as well. I still have not seen Cars 3 though. Ultimately, it wasn't released that long ago, released back in 2017, but I still haven't seen the film. Hopefully I'll see it, and then ultimately I'll get that game and play it. But before I get to that, I need to get through this game first. And finally, the very last game that I got for the PlayStation 3 is called Haze. Now, to be frank with you, I do not know much about this game. In fact, I didn't even hear about this game until I first found this game at a digital press that I got this game from literally earlier this month. And so obviously it's a little weird, but basically what's happening is that you're basically fighting the addiction. What you're actually doing here is that you're playing as a Mantel Trooper, a high-tech one, and basically all your powers is because of a drug nectar that you take that makes you literally almost superhuman. However, unfortunately, the person controlling all of this is causing a whole lot of chaos with this drug and all that stuff, and so basically you're just fighting him to basically save the rest of humanity from really succumbing to this addictive drug that you're having to consume. Now again, the reason why that I don't know much about this is because during the time that I actually went to get all of these games, at least at Digital Press, they were actually having a buy two get one for free for the PlayStation 3 side of gaming, obviously. And so ultimately when I got the first two Cars games here, ultimately they told me that I had to get one more PlayStation 3 game for free, and ultimately I decided, hey, I really like a free game, so you know what, why not? I went ahead, tried to see exactly what was there that I could find, and ultimately I just came across this one, and so why not? I took Haze. So yeah, I haven't really played this game yet. I am going to have to look up a little bit more of the story to see exactly, what it looks like. But from what I'm really seeing right now, this can either be a pretty good high-tech futuristic game, or this game could very well end up like Killzone, because ultimately a lot of people were saying that Killzone would ultimately be the Halo killer. That didn't pan out, so ultimately I will have to play this game to really give a determination of that for myself. That's it for all the PlayStation 3 games, and finally we will get into our PlayStation 4 games. Again, there's really only one PlayStation 4 game that I got this month, but it was a game that when it first came out, it was highly controversial, but also pretty fun to play as well. I've never played it before, but ultimately I will get a chance to do so eventually. It is called A Way out. Now again, this game was released all the way back in 2018, and basically this game was interesting because here you actually play as these two guys that were locked up in a prison, and ultimately you're basically setting up a prison break. You're basically trying to break your way out of this prison while making as many allies as possible. So basically, you know, you're ultimately arrested for major crimes, but yet you're trying to see your families again and ultimately get out of the free world again. And so ultimately you're just trying to make a big jailbreak so that way you can get out of that prison. Now this game is different because unlike most other single player campaign modes, this one you cannot play this alone. This is actually a two-player co-op campaign that you're having here. So ultimately it's you and then a ally or a buddy of yours that is a big gamer themselves. You two are basically playing this game together because one of you has to control one of the characters and the other one has to control the other character. So ultimately this is the one thing that I feel like it's going to be really interesting and a little bit difficult to me. So ultimately I do hope to get a chance to play it at some point, but again, since this is co-op, I will have to find somebody to play the campaign mode with me so that way we can get through this thing. Maybe I'll have to speak to Furman even though I haven't spoken to him in like 4 years, or maybe my buddy Dan who I work with at the New Jersey City. I mean, he's a real avid gamer. I don't know if he's played this game before, but maybe I could ask him if he's interested. But yeah, either way, A Way Out, this was a pretty controversial game for its time when it was released a few years back, but again, it is still remembered very well by a whole lot of the modern day gaming world. And so ultimately, I didn't have this yet prior, but I just felt like I needed to get it now. So A Way Out, hopefully once I find a buddy that I can play the co-op campaign with, we'll get through this game eventually, and hey, who knows? We'll hopefully not have the same situation that these two ended up in happen to ourselves. And that is it for all the games that I got for the holidays of 2024. Like I said before, this is a brief return right now for the Haulin Games franchise. I'll probably do these at least once or twice, like every other month or something like that, because like I said before, I don't have that much space, and then ultimately I still have to find my own home build. I will admit, that's become really difficult, especially since I graduated in a time in which home prices were really starting to rise, especially rent. So that's exactly why it has become so difficult for me to do that. But ultimately, like I said before, once I do find my own home, hopefully next year, if not anytime soon, but either way though, whenever it does happen, hopefully I'll have enough space in my home for this to become a regular thing again. So when's the next Haulin Games video, you ask? I really don't know. I think it's pretty much dependent on whether or not I'm in the mood to really get some games again for another month or two down the line. But either way, for this one, I just felt like that I need to gift myself, after a hard year's work for the holidays, to gift myself with new games here for my video game collection. And speaking of 2024, we will be wrapping up the year next Monday with my year-end review video for 2024. This year was a year of milestones for my YouTube channel, and I'll be breaking that all down along with some of my favorite content that I've created over this year in my final video of 2024 next week. I'm really looking forward to presenting that, so stay tuned for next Monday. That's when it's going to come out. I'll share with you my favorite memories from my YouTube channel for 2024. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. As always, if you'd like to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know my latest video is released. Comment below for future suggestions for my videos, whether it's blogs, projects, or challenges, you name it. Leave it in the comments below and I'll do my best to make them. As always, follow me on my social media. All the links are in the description below. That's going to do it for this video. I hope you have a great day, and hopefully I'll see you guys next week for my year-end review of 2024. So long, everybody.